I'm going to start doing some of these video posts as sort of a video column, I guess, maybe a couple times a week. Uh, just sort of free flow thoughts on various subjects that come to mind. And what I want to talk about today is the parable of the rich man who approached Jesus, requesting what he needed to do to gain admittance into heaven. And Jesus told him that he needed to keep the commandments. And the young man asked for what commandments in particular, and Jesus rattled off 4 or 5 of them. I can't remember exactly what they were, but um, the young man said, "Well, that I've done those since since I was young. I've always kept the commandments. Is there anything else that I need to do?" And Jesus responded by saying, "Well, sell everything you've got, give it to the poor, and follow me, and you will be assured a spot in heaven." And he's rich, and he walked away somewhat dejected, is the way the story goes. And Jesus' disciples said, "Well, who can get into heaven then?" And Jesus responded, "Well, what's not possible with man is possible. Anything's possible with God." That's basically the response he gave, which is consistent with what we understand to be saved through grace, which is the purpose that Jesus died for on the cross. Was he died for our sins. So we're saved by grace through faith in Jesus. Um, so, and I think about that, and I think, the Bible's very clear, and says it over and over. You can't serve God and money. And it also says that those who are first will be last, and those who are last will be first in heaven. And we tend to, I think, bestow too much. Uh, I'm trying to think of the right word, reverence, I guess, on wealthy people. And, I think about that a lot, and I think, uh, if I were Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or Larry Ellison or Jeff Bezos, any of these guys, if I were to write a book, make a speech, ask your support for a charity, it wouldn't matter. They're going to get it by virtue of their status, and their status is purely a function of their wealth. And I ask myself, is that Einstein wasn't wealthy? Does Jeff Bezos deserve more reverence or respect than Albert Einstein? Not in my world, he doesn't. I just wealth should not be the barometer that we use to measure the relevance of what somebody has to say. Yet that's the way our society views things. We listen to wealthy movie stars, wealthy basketball players. Why? There's no reason beyond. It's making money is a process. It's a focus. Basically, you've got to focus on it. You've got to. However, my ex-father-in-law made a point one time. He said, "It's not how much you make or what you do to make it. It's what you do with what you make." And his point was that you should always live well beneath your potential to live. In other words, if you make 50,000, try to set a lifestyle that allows you to live on 25 of it and invest the other 25 year after year after year. And I promise you will become wealthy. You'll become a multimillionaire if you do that and you invest your money wisely. The stock market's generated some pretty dramatic returns over the last 30, 40 years. But there are other places you can make. It's hard today in a zero interest rate environment, which we're not quite zero interest rate, but we're still the benchmark rate, which is the Fed funds rate, is still extremely low from a historical perspective. So it's harder today than it has been, but nonetheless, wise investing, living beneath your means, investing most of your money, or at least a substantial portion of your money, and compound growth is going to make you wealthy. Uh, and money attracts money. So there comes a point where you're making more with the money you've saved and invested than you're making through your work efforts. And there's a limited cap on what most of us anyway can make through our work efforts. Uh, but there's no such cap on growth of wealth versus through the process of living beneath your means and saving and investing your money. So almost all of us have the capacity, if we're willing, to make the necessary sacrifice, and if we live to a normal age, to be multimillionaires, before we die. Uh, so I'm not sure that, again, that accumulation of wealth is justification for holding a person in high regard. But nonetheless, it's what we do. This is the way that our society is, and so it gets back to how much emphasis a person puts on the accumulation of wealth. And if that's where they put their focus and their emphasis, even an average person can accumulate a significant amount of wealth. But is that greed? Does that constitute greed? And is a person who accomplishes such a thing, are they obsessed with it? Are they? My observation is that and I know people that are worth $30-40 million. I know several of them. It's not just one or two. I know a lot of people who have accumulated a lot of wealth, and they put an outsized focus on that, and they identify with that wealth. I mean, they expect people to view them as wealthy people, and to defer to them by virtue of that wealth. They're not all that way, but well, I'm not sure they're not all that way. I think most wealthy people honestly believe that they've been deservedly blessed, that fall into that wealthy category. But so here's the point. Again, the Bible says clearly that you can't serve God and man. And I would think that people of significant wealth clearly serve the world, the man side. You can't serve God and money, actually, is the way God and mammon, I believe, is the term. But the point being that I think it means that you've put such great emphasis on that, and defer to that versus God. And God doesn't want you to idolize or to crave or to covet. He wants to be first. So here's the question: does I don't have an answer. Jesus said the rich man still had a path, or at least he told his disciples that what's not possible with man is possible with God. I've got a very close friend who's in that category. He's greedy, and he'll acknowledge it. He'll admit it. it really, it's his life. Accumulating money is his life. But he's also a practicing Christian. And we discussed it the other day, and I said, you know, you are so greedy, and your focus is so much centered on wealth accumulation, and yet you profess to be a Christian. Do you see a conflict in that? I'm not sure we got an answer. I mean, he wasn't offended by the question, but I'm not sure what he should do. I'm not suggesting that he sell everything he's got, give to the poor, and follow Jesus. Jesus isn't here today, but I think it's something that we've all really got to think about. Well, not all, because a lot of us just aren't that money centered, but I think the majority of us are. Even if we haven't accumulated a lot of wealth, we're still attempting to accumulate a lot of income so that we can have the pleasures of life and so forth. We still live a very worldly life. And Jesus was very specific about telling us that that's not the life that we need to live. So to put that in perspective, let's say that, I don't know, yeah, I think I'm at my age, I've got maybe another, you know, if I live to a normal life expectancy based on the actuarial tables, I've got another 15, 16 years. And so that would put me in my 80s somewhere, when if I were to die at that point. And I think I'm so 80 years old, relative to what, the age of Earth, which is roughly 4.5 billion years, or God. If God created the universe, and we pretty much know that the universe is approaching 14 billion years old, so God would have to be that old. 14 billion years versus 80 years. And then recognizing that 14 billion years is not eternity. It's still not eternity. So how really important is anything we do in this life beyond recognizing an eternal existence and the stature that we will have, and the Bible's clear on that. It says over and over, those who are last will be first, and those who are first will be last. The takeaway that I get from that is a lot of people who have suffered, that have seemed like they've lived almost a cursed life, but remained in faith. And I'll tell you this too, it's a lot easier to remain in faith when you live that quote cursed life. I mean, you're looking for, you reach out to God, whereas people who live a worldly life, who are blessed with a lot of income and a lot of wealth, tend not to. And I think that's natural. They're just not. They don't tend to look to God for answers. They don't look to God to assist them through life. They're doing it on their own, and that's what God cautioned us against. So I fully and completely understand his point, that focus on wealth, and especially if you succeed in creating that and creating those higher levels of income, can be a tremendous drag in terms of eternity and how you will live through eternity once your 80 some years are gone. It's an extremely short period of time. I'm not suggesting, by the way, that wealthy people who are strong in their faith with regard to believing that Jesus died for their sins, but is saved. But again, there is stature in heaven, according to the Bible. We're not going to be equal in heaven any more so than we are equal on earth. So it's just something to think about. I'm just throwing it out there. I guess it's what's been on my mind, and I've I don't have an answer as to what the friend I'm talking about should do. I mean, you know, should he? I sort of think I do actually. I think he should probably back away from it, do something for with the rest of the life that he has to try to earn God's favor at least, because I do think there's a difference between um, I think we may all get into heaven, but we may not all reside in the same neighborhood once we get into heaven. And I think, you know, you take that $30–40 million and do something really wonderful, something that you know that God would absolutely love you for doing, something similar to what Jesus told the rich man to do. Uh, might be a prudent thing. I'm, you know, to gain some stature when the day comes. And there's another story. I'm gonna close with this story, by the way, where Jesus was in the church and they were taking offerings, and a poor widow lady came in and put two tiny small coins in the offering plate, and Jesus made the comment that that woman has given more than any of the other people that have made offerings today, because she gave everything, and the rest have given of their excess. And again, my takeaway, that poor woman is going to have stature in heaven, and that rich man that was standing next to Jesus as he was talking about this is probably going to be looking up to the woman. So it's something to think about. You know, there's the people that I know that are in this category have plenty of time to. I'm not telling them what to do, but it's the wrong focus, and I think they should take that into consideration. That's an opinion. You know, it's just anyway. That was something that was on my mind. It came as a result of a conversation again that I had with a wealthy friend of mine. So thought I'd share it with you. Talk to you next time.